Welcome to the Practical Worship Blog, your source for ideas, tips, and practical advice for the everyday worship leader. We're in a series called Sequences, and I'm showing you how to use sequences and tracks in a live worship set. In the last video, we talked about creation and the software and the processes that go with that. In this video, we're going to talk about execution and how you actually use these tracks and things that you've built on a Sunday morning. This is a program called Ableton Live, and I learned about this from a video that I watched. It was a presentation from the band leader from Kelly Clarkson, and they talked about how they used Ableton Live. And of course, it was a presentation they had put together, and they were trying to get you to buy the product. It was very salesmanish and stuff like that, but I guess it worked because I bought it. And they talked through how they used it. So a lot of the information I'm going to share with you today is kind of regurgitated from that, but it's really, really good stuff. In that video and in that presentation, they talked about how they took the album, the Kelly Clarkson album, and they broke it up into pieces. They broke it up into a drum part, a bass part, guitar parts, keyboard parts, those things, and then they put it all back together as a puzzle into this program, Ableton Live. And then what they would do is say, well, I have a drummer, and they mute that track. I have a bass player, and I'm going to mute that track. I have a guitar player playing this specific part, so I'll mute that track. And one by one, they would mute the tracks, and then whatever was left over, that's what they would fly in. And when you put everything together, you put the live musicians together with the parts they were bringing in through Ableton, you accurately could reproduce the record in a live concert. And so the plan for a Sunday morning using this program is very, very similar. Now, this file that I have here is from a band I played in a couple years ago, a rock and roll band, kind of an edgier sound, and it was the same kind of a thing. We took all the parts from the record and we put it into Ableton. In fact, this is everything except for the drums and for the lead vocal, and I'll play this real fast. And then we said, okay, well, we have a bass player, so we mute that. We have an acoustic player, we mute that. We have the different guitar players, the rhythm and the lead electric, and so we mute that. And we have these three left over. And this is what we would fly in for a concert that we were doing. Now, the first thing that's really cool about Ableton that's really useful, especially in the church field, is those rehearsals where the bass player doesn't show up, but you still want to have a very effective rehearsal? Well, you have the bass part. Just turn it on. And if your sound card allows it, if you have more than 2 channels, if it has 4 channels or 8 channels or whatever, you can send just this bass part. You can change this setting right here and send it down its own individual track and send that down to your sound man independent of what you're flying in normally for loops. And now your sound man can interact with it and react with it just like the bass player was there live, and they can practice what they do and get things set up in a very realistic fashion. By the way, the artist that I'm playing here is Aaron Hansel. This song's called Ashes. If you want to check it out, it's on iTunes, and it's very cool. Before I go any further, I probably should mention the click track, and that's what this is right here. When you're running loops, no matter if you're doing Ableton or you've mixed it down to an MP3 and you're just going to play it on your iPhone, there has to be a metronome. There has to be a click track that is lined up with the sequence that you're running, and then your band has to play to that click track. That's how everyone stays together, and it's a very, very important part of the whole process. If you have in-ears, if you're using like an Avion system, you can send the click track to the entire band and they can all hear it. You obviously don't, put that into the house so the congregation hears it, but the band can hear it. At the very least, if you have just normal wedges, you just have normal stage monitors on the stage, you have to send it to your drummer and just put headphones on your drummer and send the click track to the drummer, and then everyone plays to that. And so that's how everyone stays in time. And it sounds like, you do something like this. So you start at the very beginning of the song. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And you're in. Okay, second very, very useful feature of Ableton is time shifting. You can change the tempo of the song really super fast, and you do that over here. You know how you build this track in your home studio and it feels really, really good, but when you bring it into a live setting, it just seems to drag. Okay, well, this is at 105 beats per minute. I can change it to 107 beats per minute. Really super easy. Let me turn these on so you can get the context of this. Let's say I want to go all the way to 110. I'm hearing a little bit of flutter, so I'll probably change this. Oh, there's flutter on the bass too. Alright. I can slow it down. Now, the presentation that the Kelly Clarkson band leader was he was talking about as far as this being very useful, let's say you're playing the Tonight Show and you get 3 minutes and you get 3 minutes only to play your song. Well, this song ends, if this is the song we're doing, it ends like this. And it ends at about 3 minutes and 7 seconds down here. Well, if I sit here and I up this up just a little bit, see how that time changes now? That song now ends right at 3 minutes. Very useful feature. Okay, a couple more features. I'm going to pull up a different file though. We're going to go over here to a sequence that I have for Our God is Love from Hillsong. This is a sequence we've used on a Sunday morning. In fact, we used it last Sunday morning for this song. Turn the click back on. Now, one of the things we like to do on a Sunday morning is we like to do a greeting while the song continues to go. So we go over here to this section right here, and one of the really neat things about Ableton is that you can define a section like this, and you can loop that section over and over and over and over when you get to it, and then when you release it and turn this off, it'll let you pass on to the rest of the song. So you're coming out of the chorus like this. And then we go into a greeting, and your worship leader says something like, "Welcome to such and such church. We're so glad that you're here. We're going to keep playing through this, and as we do, go ahead and find some people you don't know, and let's welcome them to church this morning." And so they're doing that, and this section it keeps playing. You got your live musicians playing what they're playing, the sequence plays what it's doing, and this just goes over and over and over until you release the loop. Okay, so I'm going to release the loop. Nothing magical happens yet. But when we get to that chorus section, now it's not going to loop anymore. It's going to go into that chorus. This is love. Jesus came to die and gave his life for us. Now here's another neat thing that's really cool. You want to do the chorus again? Right on the fly, you can do stuff like that. And if you build your track appropriately, if you just have chorus sections and verse sections, you don't even really need to map out exactly what you're going to do. You can just kind of punch it. Now you're seeing me do this with a mouse, but you can also map all of these things, mute buttons and different sections of the song. Even this little thing, this feature that I told you about, you can map that to keys on the keyboard of your laptop. You can actually also map them to keys on a musical keyboard. In fact, I've got a 2-octave little keyboard that I have put some tape on and marked it up. And if I'm playing keys or if I'm playing drums, I'll have this next to me. And if I want to go to section 1, or if I want to go to section 3, I can tap that, or we're in the verse. And now I want to go to the chorus. And now I want to go to the bridge, and I just press the keys on the keyboard, and it's all mapped out in Ableton, and it'll go to those sections and play the parts that I need to play. So that's how I execute tracks and how I use a program like Ableton Live on a Sunday morning. In the next video, the final video of the series, we're going to talk about how we get from A to B. How do we get from a creation software like GarageBand and create the stems and bring that into a program like this, like Ableton Live, and execute on a Sunday morning. For now, my name's Dave, and for more great information on this and other topics, check out practicalworshipblog.com. And besides being here on YouTube, we're also on Twitter and we're on Facebook, so find us there. Thank you so much for watching.